Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Whitney Inge. I am the Director of Alumni and Donor Engagement here at Davenport. This is our, I believe, sixth Davenport Dialogues of the season, and we are so excited to have everyone join us. With that being said, I am so excited to introduce one of our alumni, Joanna Udo. She is the founder of Bridges in Tech, as well as many other things. I know you're a very busy woman, Joanna. But today she's going to be talking to us about closing the diversity gap within tech. So, Joanna, please take it away.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for taking the time out to join us on this conversation today. My name is Joanna. As introduced, I graduated from Davenport too many years ago now, which is still shocking because I feel like I just graduated college, but apparently not. And I am the founder of Bridges in Tech, an organization that focuses on helping get more women of color into tech and other underrepresented groups. So I was very excited to have this conversation today. So I'm just going to quickly ask those that are on, when you hear about DEI, what do you think it means, or are you familiar with it? Most people have heard of DEI today, but just like quick notes in the chat to just say what you think DEI is. DEI rep for the library here at DU, so I have a lot of experience. Yep. So those that are already doing DEI work are probably very familiar with it, but bringing diverse people and insights into an organization. Laura, thank you. Janice, thank you for your notes in the chat. Some of the questions that, some of the things that brings me to this work is some of this data that is currently showing on the screen. So when I graduated college, I joined the workforce. Actually, I joined the workforce when I was still, I believe, a sophomore in college is when I got hired into my first tech job. And it was all cool. I like hanging out with the boys and stuff. I 5 brothers, and most of my life really revolves around spending a lot of time with boys. So it was not a big deal. It was cool. I was the only girl in some of my classes, and there was some classes that we had 2 to 3. I think at most we would have like 4 girls total in a class of 25. And that did not even strike me as anything. It was just normal, right? Computer networking, network security. It's somehow a boys' course, and that was totally acceptable. And funny enough, when I joined the workforce, I joined a team of 25, and I was the only girl. And it's like class all the way again. And I still thought nothing of it. But as time went on, because I would start, I would share with people what I do for a living. I would go out, I'll meet my friends and stuff, and we'd talk about what I'm doing. And I would try to encourage more people to, do what I'm doing, because it's not really that hard. But anyway, in one of these events or at work, they started talking about the potential tech talent shortage, right? And this was years ago, and it always seemed like it was a long, like way in the future that we're going to start experiencing this, right? In some cases, they would say 2020 and 2025, and that seemed like a long time. But as you get closer to the work of recruiting, then the pool seems to get smaller and smaller and smaller, whereas we are continuing to connect more and more and more things to technology, right? So there's a couple of things. One being that we are digitizing a lot of things today, right? People that weren't even interested in technology are now part of technology, whether they like it or not. So whether you're a teacher or farmer, back in the day, you can just be like, I'm a farmer. What do I care about technology, right? No, not anymore. You need it. So we continue to connect more stuff to technology, but not really getting more people to come in and do the work. And then you have a whole generation that is starting to exit the workforce, right? Like your boomers, who had worked for years. And a lot of them are also in tech because they've just, a lot of them just got tapped into doing tech work. But now there is that whole generation that will be leaving the workforce. And so this start throwing these numbers out, right? And these are all from different organizations. So employment in tech is projected to grow 11% from 2019 to 2029. That is actually from Bureau of Labor and Statistics in the US specifically. So which apparently is faster than the average for all occupations. And then globally, they say that the tech shortage is expected to reach 4.3 million by 2030. And then they surveyed 65% of tech leaders believe lack of talent is their biggest challenge, which is up 59% in 2018. And despite all of the stories that we've probably seen on social media over the last few months, there's been a lot of layoffs for tech jobs. There are still around 700,000 unfilled tech jobs in the US. And women hold 25% of computing related occupations, which is mind-boggling. It's a small number, but also considering how much women we have overall in the workforce, that seems a little low. And then, of course, there is my favorite, which is around kind of companies' outcomes, right? A study by McKinsey and Company found that companies in the top quartile for gender diversity on their executive teams were 25% more likely to have above average profitability than companies in the bottom quartile. So diversity is good for several things. Diversity is good because it's going to bring more bodies. Because the first questions I asked was, well, if there's going to be so much shortage, why are we still limiting our options to the people we want interviewing for those jobs, right? We're still looking in the same places. We're still waiting for people to have X, Y, and Z degree in certifications and 90 years of experience and all this stuff. Like, you all are desperate. You should be taking anyone you can find at this point, right? So diversity, equity, and inclusion will help bring more people into the talent pool. But it's not just that. It will obviously improve the lives of those people that will join the workforce, but it will also increase companies' revenues because statistically, a more diverse leadership team, a more diverse executive team, and I think it actually goes all the way down, right? A more diverse workforce is going to generate more innovative solutions, and in turn, you can maximize your profits. So it's not just for me, it's for the companies too. So anyway, when I saw all of that data, that's when I decided to do some more research and figure out how can we help get more people into this field. So I was talking to people about my work, what I do. At that time, that's all I knew was just what I did. So I could guide people around how to do the work that I did in the first my first work. I did web development, but I don't usually talk too much about that. I still actually do web development. I have a consulting business, so I still do it. But was desktop support. And in desktop support, we're just taking apart computers and fixing them. So if you work for a company, you've probably had what they call like field services or desktop support team, and those people come around, you want your mouse, keyboard, your printer is broken, they like handle all of that. And that's what I knew how to do. And I really enjoyed it. So I would try to teach people how to do that. And most people weren't interested. I was spending a lot of time helping people. And then I started to notice like all the different things that cause this problem. A lot of times people had different thoughts around what being in tech really means. So they think it's too complicated. Like, okay, you're talking about taking stuff apart. I don't have any desire to take stuff apart, right? Or you're talking about coding. I have no desire to do that. And they think they need to be so advanced in like math and all of those things. But on the other hand, was people that have already been in tech that left tech because the environment was not favorable to them. So it's a big boys club. And if you are not a person that like cusses and swears like a sailor and wears, baggy pants and like to be in the bottom of a property, basement with no lights on, and understand all of the cartoon characters and stuff like that, then it wasn't for you. That's where DEI really comes in, right? Comes in several ways. So people that already got in the field are saying, I don't feel like I belong here. Most of the rules and most of the things that are planned at work does not include them. And then you talk in a meeting and they talk over you, and some people can only put up with it for so long, right? There's actually some other data, and I haven't looked at the most recent version, but there is as of last year, and maybe it's changed again, or maybe 2021. It was something like we had more women in tech in the 80s than we do today. And there is something about that, being people not feeling like they belong in the space and just leaving and being like, I'm not going to do this anymore. So diversity, equity, and inclusion, a lot of times companies focus on diversity. They're like, oh, wow, our workforce is diverse. And then that's it. Well, that is not going to retain. You're not going to be able to retain those diverse candidates, right? Or diverse employees. So then you need your inclusion. But equity really comes to fairness, right? It's the fairness, which will also lead to retention. And so you really cannot just have a diversity program. If you're serious about creating a more diverse workforce, you should focus on all three things, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so, again, coming back to just learning from all the different people, just chatting with people and learning why they're not in tech. I just kind of fell into this space of trying to bring awareness and trying to help people understand, it can be better, or here's what you need to do. And I guess now people ask me to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I say that to say I don't have formal training in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Most of my work is around my experience we've probably coached about 300 women, and that's just counting the women. But we have so part of my group is that we have people that are of different races and different abilities and all of that, even though we are focused on women of color. So we've coached, we've placed them in jobs, we've helped with interview preparations, we've done a whole bunch of stuff. So these are like real life conversations that I've had and connected with people on, is where most of my experience comes from. So then we jump, and so as I talk to the people that need to get in the field, I'm learning a lot, right? But I'm also learning from the other people that are considered majority, or just people in general. And I've heard different things about DEI. And so I wanted to highlight some of the misconceptions that I've heard. So hiring quotas, this one is really, really, really passionate about this one. When I first got hired in my role, we were working and we had interns. And then at the end of it, somewhere along the line, we're having a conversation around like a break room. And this intern said something, and he said, very soon, people like me aren't even going to be able to get a job anymore because, you got hired to meet the quota. That's why you're here. And that's why I'm the only woman. And that's why I'm the only Black person on the team. And it was so random. I could never remember what else we were talking about that really led to that. And I was just taken aback. I was like, what? I was like 20 at the time. So I was like, whatever, moving on with my life. I think I said something snarky, and I have really, really bad sense of humor in this. I guess it's part of the trauma for me of being part of the boys club for too long. And I said something and I said, oh, that's cool. Whatever it takes, at least it got me here. What can you say about you, or something like that? So he didn't actually end up getting hired. I think we had about 4 interns, maybe 2 of them were hired, and he was one of the 2 that weren't hired. I was like, oh well, I don't know what happened there. So I've heard this over and over and over. People say that, oh, you're the token hire. And it's not necessarily to me. I've heard it from other women of all races, right? Depending on what that job is. Because in most, you're going to have white women in roles that are also male dominated that people could say weird things about, right? And I've heard it all the time. I hear it all the time. Yep, they just did it to meet the quota. Not true. That is, well, if that's what an organization is doing, then they're still doing DEI wrong, right? Because that's not the sole purpose of it, isn't to meet a particular quota. Some people say, oh, it's nice to have, if you kind of run out of projects to do in your organization and need something else to take on, DEI is something that you should maybe have. Some people, and this one comes from my small business. So I do, because I do consulting, I also talk to a lot of small business owners on a day-to-day basis. And they're like, DI, that's something for large companies, What do I have to do about? I'm a tiny little business making $500,000 a year. I don't need to care about this stuff. Also not, I don't know, maybe you should. A lot of focus is also around race and gender, which are big for DEI, but there are other, there are other areas. It is about having people from like different abilities, right? So your race, your gender, your age, right? There's age discrimination now. There's a lot of different things. And then some people say that it's reverse discrimination. And this is like a new one, like we talk about a lot on social media, because people are like, well, no, I didn't. And I hear this too. And people are like, I didn't get hired because I was a white man. And it's like, I also don't know. It's not what DEI is about. So that being said, and I touched on this part a little bit, right? Why DEI, really? One, because it's going to drive innovation. So when you think about what your products and services that you offer, I mean, maybe it depends, right? Maybe you do have a very unique product that is sold to only white men. Then maybe DEI is not necessarily something you should worry about, right? But for the vast majority of businesses, their products and services does in fact touch the lives of a lot of different kinds of people. So when you only have one group of people at the table making that decision, right? You are missing out on some key things that could really help drive your product and make your products better, and even make your customer experience better. And so this is where diversity is really nice to have, because if I'm sitting in a room and you are a company that sells hair products, for example, and you are targeting a certain group of people, like I can tell you right away, that's probably not going to fly with this particular group of people because I understand this group of people, which right there would save you some marketing money that you would have just wasted. You would have just wasted targeting the wrong thing at what you thought was the right group. Your equity is really that fairness that we talked about. Inclusivity is your employee retention, right? So now you've got the diverse workforce, and now you need to keep them, because what good is it going to do you to spend all this time, all this money hiring this diverse group of people only to have them leave within a year? There is some numbers around how much companies lose when people leave, right? Because the cost of rehiring and training and getting them acquainted with the environment and all of that can be a lot. So what does inclusivity really mean, though? When we're like, be more inclusive, right? We're talking simple things as how your office space is arranged, right? And so if there are people with disabilities, and I know we do have disability laws, right, that kind of guides some of those things. But people of certain age, people of different races, people of different gender, does your workplace reflect that? Does it have things that allow those people to be more of themselves and be more comfortable in doing their job? But also like something as simple as team meetings, so team gatherings, right? Team building events, they are my favorite examples. All of the team building events are golfing, right? Well, does everybody on this team, one, know how to golf? And two, is that even a sport that they enjoy, right? So I'm not saying don't have golf outings. I'm saying golf outings cannot be your only form of team building. You need to take other people into consideration, and then make sure that you're changing those around. And it's intentional work, right? I think sometimes we settle because it's easier to do, right? Like, oh, I'm already used to setting this up, so we're just going to schedule that permanently. But the other thing is potlucks. We don't work in the office anymore, and I think some people still do. But I am 100% remote and have been for 3 years, so I don't miss the potlucks. But potlucks were very was always very fascinating to me. It was like you don't really know what situations people are in, first of all, and you're forcing me to make food and bring. And then when people brought food, there was a lot of snide comments about, oh my God, that smells like, like if your employees understood like the diversity of their own team, and that some people do eat strange things. I joked at work all the time when they're like, oh, it's gonna be a potluck, and what are you gonna bring, Joey? And I'm like, I won't bring anything because I'm gonna bring some goat, and then y'all gonna judge me about it. So not doing it. And then my food is gonna be too spicy for everyone, so that's not helpful either. Actually, very recently, I tried to make food for my friends, and I thought that it was not spicy at all, and nobody could eat it. And they were like, "Oh my God, we can't." I'm like, "Really? I thought this was like nothing wasn't." Anyway, that's besides the point. But just that intent, creating that environment where people can at least share some of those things is really helpful. I talked already about increasing your revenue with DEI. It does help build your brand, right? Brand reputation. Believe it or not, a lot of people talk. I hear this all the time when somebody is interviewing for a new job or applying for a new job. They would go to certain groups, right, that they're comfortable with, and they ask questions and they go, oh, does anybody work at so and so place? I have an interview. Like, can you give me some feedback or whatever? Believe it or not, people will say some bad things, right? And so if there are underrepresented people already working there and they're not treated well, they're sharing it. That's why they didn't apply to that job. That's why you did not see as many underrepresented people applying to that job, because they have just heard that this place is not the place for them. So if you have better DEI program, you can then attract more people like that, right? Because people are sharing and saying, yeah, this is so great. It's the best place to work at. And people are coming in when you have that opening, people will apply to it. I've had goat made by a Kenyan and it was good. Oh, I love that. Maybe I will bring a spicy goat. No, I'm just playing. Are there any questions? Feel like I'm just going on.
Joanna, you had one that came up in the chat from Janice earlier that she said, Joanna, it's helpful to hear of your experience in tech. I have a LibGuide regarding DU majors, including tech, but it would be great to add some into about tech regarding hiring practices and DEI. She linked that page, so we'll make sure we get that over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So one of the things I wanted to share, some of the questions that we hear is, so some people say, what can I do as an organization, or what are some examples of companies that have done something in the DEI space that I can maybe reference? And I just threw out a quick 3 examples, like Salesforce, Microsoft, Intel. I'm not saying that any one of them is perfect. I am saying that they are taking an approach to diversify their workforce. And from what I've heard, not just from data that they have shared, and said, because companies do that, right? They would share data on how great they're doing and all of that. But from people that actually work there, I've heard really, really good things about Salesforce. And they've got like bias training for all of the employees, which is really, really important. I think that's like the number one easiest thing that most people can do, is just train their workforce, their people, to understand the unconscious bias that they have, right? And so it's not even the conscious one, it's the unconscious ones that really hurts people. And so for organizations to be able to force that and say, yep, we're going to do trainings on this. But they also have, all of 3 of those companies have like employee resource groups that kind of focuses on different groups. Are they intentional about that, right? They're giving people the opportunity to connect, and they're also listening and learning from them and providing them those opportunities to grow. So I'm not going to talk too much about it because I'm over time, but you can do quick research on those 3 companies. Once you have started some of this DI efforts, you want to make sure that you are measuring, right, your progress. There's a lot of times people think they're doing all this DEI work, but they're not measuring it. So you can't really say what progress is like. And this is some of the points of the data sets that you want to look at. I always start with the demographic data, right? You can't do anything, you can't start anything until you already know what your space looks like, right? What's that demographic data? You can ask some questions through surveys to your employees so that you can gather like how they're feeling or how they perceive how the program is going. And that can help you improve certain things, but also your retention rates. I think that's a really good one to look at for DEI initiatives. If you're a company that just has a really high turnover of people of all backgrounds, well, you have a whole different problem because there's something is not working there. But as you dig more into that data, if you're looking at a certain group of people that's leaving more than others, then that can tell you what you're doing wrong, right? That you can help fix. But also promotion rates and then your revenue. After saying all that, people are like, well, I'm not a leader. I don't have a company. Like, what is my role? Like, there's nothing I can do about DEI because I'm not the one in power. Well, whether you're an individual contributor or you are a leader or you're a business owner, this is just some things that you can do for yourself, on your own. One is to educate yourself, right? We live in a world where it's information overload as it is. So just about anything, any question you have, you're like a Google click away. Educate yourself in some of these topics. Look at your friend circle. How's your friend circle doing? Diverse? No, not. Why? Right? What are the type of events that you're going to like? There are certain things that you can start looking at and asking yourself those questions to see if there is any unconscious bias that is preventing you from doing things a certain way, because that is probably carrying into the workplace, whether you like it or not. Like this, a lot of people don't have a separate life from a work life and me as a person life. For the most part, some of the things that are at our core are coming to work with us, even if we think we left them at home. So just being self-aware and educating yourself goes a long way in the work of DEI. Be an ally. Support somebody that, if you feel like you have a voice, use that for those people that may not be able to use it. If you're sitting in a meeting and someone from an underrepresented group is trying to share their idea, voice their concern, and is just getting shut down, raise your hand and help them out, right? You can eat something as simple as just being like, oh, Joanna had a question, can we listen to Joanna's question? Goes a long way. Foster an inclusive culture. When you think about doing things, whether you're planning an event for the team, think about the rest of the people on your team. To set goals and track progress. I don't know how many people do this, but I like to do this for myself. But I set goals for everything and have to track progress. Otherwise, I would lose track. But if I noticed that I was really bad in certain areas, I try to set some goals around that. And the next time I want to go see if I made any progress, right? And then be a role model, right? When you're that example, when you're acting as an ally, when you're speaking up for somebody in the group that wasn't able to speak, when you offer to do a quick resume review for somebody that maybe doesn't have the resources and doesn't know how to go about it, you are being a role model, and somebody else in your friends group, in your church, in your community is going to see you do that and then do it too, right? So now we have two people that are doing this type of work without even, signing up to be a DEI practitioner, being a leader, or any of that. So you start to grow more people and kind of transform them into being DEI conscious. And then this all ties back down to use your platform, whatever that is, right? Whether you're at church, whether you're a social media person like me, whether you're a teacher, a parent, whatever. But just use your platform to help others understand how their actions can impact people, both positively and negatively. And I would stop there because I could talk for days. Oh, okay, there's that one last slide. This is just about my organization, Bridgerton Tech, and what we do. And so some of the things that we do involves just creating awareness. We create awareness and all the different jobs that's available in tech. Like I said at the beginning, we have a lot of people that felt like they had to code or they had to take computers apart to be in tech, but there's probably like 300 different technology roles out there. And so we spend a lot of time just creating awareness on what those roles are and how they fit with who you are and your experience. We coach, we mentor, we teach people different skill sets. We help with job placements, and then we do DI consultations for companies to help them understand the gaps that they have and how to fill them.
Joanna, thank you so, so much. I am going to give everyone a chance if you have any questions, comments. And this was fantastic, Joanna. I thank you so much for doing this. And I think I was probably also in that lump of people that thought technology world involved coding, and I do not understand coding at all. So I was one of those people.
Wow. Thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation.
Thank you so much, Joanna. Everyone, have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you for joining us for Davenport Dialogues, and we can't wait to see you next month. Have a great day, everyone.